So the Brexiteers at the referendum, and really since then, have made easily the biggest fuss about trade. And to them, Brexit was apparently all about trade and the quote-unquote apparent opportunities that lay before us. They wanted to set Britain free from its chains, and it believed that Britain had been shackled by the evil EU, and that this was a moment to unchain Britain and set it forth free on a prosperous, free, buccaneering future. But, and I'll say this now, I am a layman. I'm very much a layman when it comes to trade. Everything I have really learnt from the past, really since 2016, has been reading from experts, looking at what they have to say on trade, and I have to say, this doesn't look good. It really does not look good. We've mentioned a couple of times before, first of all, the concept of trade gravity. Countries always trade most with their closest neighbours. The EU is not going anywhere. In our top 10 countries we trade with, only the US and China are the only non-European countries in that list. And even in the top 15, still dominated by European countries, but that's where you see Japan come in and China, but still the rates of trade are nothing compared to the European countries that we trade with. So this lie that was spread that somehow, we can go and trade with these other countries. Well, just look what happened recently to the Cheshire Cheese Company. It lost all its European market because it just does not have the capability to be able to trade with Europe anymore, because it has to fill out forms which cost time and money to the company that it basically just cannot afford. And basically that increases the cost to the consumer. So in Europe, if they wanted to buy British cheddar, it is now double the cost. This has basically put that cheese out of complete competition in that market, because there are other cheeses from France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, you name it, that are there that are far cheaper than the British cheese. And then it gets even funnier, because DEFRA then turned around and said, oh look, you're missing the whole point, because what you need to do is you need to look further afield. You need to go start trading with Canada. So the Cheshire Cheese Company went, okay, we'll start having a look at trading with Canada, if this is quote unquote the massive opportunity that the government was saying it was. Turns out, not surprisingly, that the costs of trying to send cheese to Canada are so high that it is basically unprofitable. Not a surprise. And yet, the trade with Canada and America was by far, the most predominant talking point during all of Brexit. And yet here you have the Cheshire Cheese Company, held up by Liz Truss as an amazing company and a company that should do fantastically well on Britain's new global stage, unable to actually now compete on the global stage because of Brexit. And today, you'll not be surprised to see this, because, as always, if you've been following the experts, you know exactly what is coming. But before we jump into this article, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And thank you to all those people that do support me that way. And so on to the article. And this comes from London Loves Business. And the title of the article is Experts Warn That Non-EU Countries Will Not Fill the Brexit Void. So the official UK trade figures for February make grim reading for Britain's manufacturers and retailers. says the international delivery expert ParcelHero. Comparing the results to those of a year ago, exports of goods have collapsed by 65.3 billion and imports crumbled by 64.8 billion. ParcelHero's head of consumer research, David Jenkins, says, the trade figures for February released this week are extremely concerning. The 18.3% drop collapse in exports highlights the impact Brexit is having on the UK economy. It is encouraging that British exports did struggle upwards to 9.9% in February compared to the previous month of January. However, that is setting the bar exceedingly low, given that January's exports were by far the worst ever recorded, with over a drop in 3.7 billion, and the monthly uptick in exports to the EU in February is a positive headline figure. But keep in mind that they have fallen by an eye-watering 5.6 billion in January, and there's still lots of trade to try and claw back. February's non-exports to the non-EU countries actually fell by over 10% compared to the previous month, and how non-EU exports could fall by 1.5 billion against January's terrible results beggars belief. The government can no longer claim that the latest trade results are due to a temporary post-Christmas dip or stockpiling, just as it did for January's figures. These numbers are a clear proof of the impact of Brexit. Even imports of goods fell by over 64 billion compared to February's 2020, a decline of over 13.6%. This includes sales of key consumer goods such as clothing, footwear, and technology. Brexiteers claimed that markets such as the US would compensate for the loss of trade with the European Union. This has proved not to be the case. The latest government data shows that of the top 4 UK exports to the USA, only car sales actually rose. Pharmaceuticals and medicine supplies slumped by over 42%, chemicals were down by 4%, and power equipment down by 8%. When Boris Johnson signed his Brexit deal with the EU, he claimed that Britain would be prosperous and dynamic and contented. So far, the UK exporters look less prosperous and far from dynamic and increasingly discontented. British businesses continue to wrestle with increased customs tariffs, border delays, and rising transport costs. Our fear is that there could be an even worse yet to come. Let's not forget that some of the most complex new border EU regulations have been postponed unilaterally by the UK government. What their impact might be on these already worrying trade figures when they are eventually imposed, only time will tell. So once again, things are not looking good. And remember, trade, of all things, was built heavily by the Brexiteers as being the key reason to leave the European Union. We could go and do all these fantastic trade deals. Yet, as we have said and covered time and time and time again, over and over, the single phrase has been repeated, and this isn't the first time we've heard it, that non-EU trade will not help support the loss of EU trade. It doesn't matter that Britain wants to join the TTP, that will not help it recover. The Japan deal that was signed was absolutely awful and terrible compared to the deal we had with Japan when we were in the EU. And if that is the level of caliber we can expect from trade deals in the future, then we ain't going to get any good trade deals. And as we have said before, the only way to recover is to rejoin the single market and customs union. And then once we're in those, the argument then becomes, well, should we not have control over more say of the regulations of what happens in this market and customs union that we are now part of? And then we will end up rejoining the European Union. It has always been very plain and simple. Strip away any of the political arguments for Brexit, the sovereignty argument, the take back control, you name it. If you look fundamentally at the economics of it, it does not make a single bit of sense for Britain not to be a part of the European Union. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.